Hello and welcome to rounds 9 to 12 of the 2019 GT Cup Championship. We're back at Snetterton after an unusually long break, so our drivers are raring to go and ready to compete for those all-important points. The GT Cup is forever changing, and there have been some upgrades this season. In fact, not just this season, but this weekend too, with drivers swapping cars and groups. Graham, we've seen you in the Ginetta previously, but you have changed car completely this weekend. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, this is a Nissan GTR Nismo GT3. So it's a proper ex-works Japanese car that's been running in Europe. In some of the biggest GT series in Europe. The team didn't want me to drive this car this weekend. They wanted me to drive the Ginetta because we only got the car last week. It's going well, but I'm very nervous because it is twice the power of the Ginetta. We're doing 160 miles an hour at the end of the straight in the wet, and it's got traction control and it's got ABS, and I've never driven with traction or ABS. So that's quite difficult to get used to.
Never really done anything with a GTR before. Obviously we've worked on P2 cars and a lot of other different formulas over the years, but yeah, never with a GTR before. Didn't really see the car before this weekend. We've not even had a chance to put it on a flat patch. It's literally as RJN delivered it to us, so it's been a big learning curve so far. I think the biggest change for Graham is obviously it's left-hand drive now, whereas the Ginetta was right-hand drive, so he's having a bit of trouble judging where the apexes are, and managed to clip the barrier in practice on Friday, coming into the pit lane just slowly. Forgot there was an extra bit on the right of it.
And in the Saturday morning qualifying session for the sprint race, drivers were greeted with a wet Snetterton circuit. However, the rain had stopped falling, which meant that as the cars circulated, the track would dry out, and all importantly, those lap times popped in at the very last moments of the qualifying session could be all important when it came to setting a time for the grid. So let's have a look at the way the grid lines up then. Dan Dazil on pole position, Richard Chamberlain alongside. Row 2 is Lachy Christoforou and Tom Webb, with Graham Tilley and Chris Prosser on row number 3. Row 4 is Steve Ruston and Josh Jackson, and row 5 is Brent Millage and Sander Mortensen, who joins the championship this weekend. Row 6, David Franklin and Del Shelton, with row 7 being Fraser Smart and Chris Murphy. Row 8 is Mal Sanford and Frank Mortensen, and John Seal, after an off in qualifying, starts at the very, very back of the grid at the wheel of his Lamborghini. Watch out for him as he makes progress. So the cars in neat 2x2 order coming up towards the start line. The Ferrari of Dan Dazil, a new 488 for him and his father Graham this weekend. Lights are on, lights go out, and we're away and racing at Snetterton. Looks as though it's a good start from Dan Dazil, but Richard Chamberlain is just going to nose the Porsche ahead as they head up towards Richie's for the first time. Richard Chamberlain takes the lead, and trying to go round the outside is Tom Webb at the wheel of the Lamborghini. It looks as though he's through into second. Dan Dazil is down into third, but fighting back on the run up towards the hairpin at Wilson for the first time. Round through the right-hand hairpin, Richard Chamberlain from Tom Webb, then Dan Dazil, everybody else safely making it through the first couple of corners. Already the green Lamborghini in the hands of John Seal from the back of the grid is starting to pick off a few places. They turn their way through Palmer for the first time. It's Porsche that leads, Lamborghini second, the number 19 Ferrari of Dan Dazil there in third place, and Lachy Christoforou in fourth place. Dan Dazil jinks out from behind Tom Webb, tries to take a wide sweep in towards Agostini, but is at the moment still stuck there in third position. The rest of the field just filing their way through the left-hand hairpin at Agostini, with David Franklin's Porsche under pressure from Chris Murphy's Aston Martin by the look of things, and Tom Webb in second place under pressure from the Ferrari of Dan Dazil that sits behind. Now these two are fighting for the lead of Group GTC at the moment, whilst the race leader, the Porsche of Richard Chamberlain that runs in Group GTO, is looking to try and make good his escape. Out of Williams, down the Bentley straight, Dan Dazil looking to try and haul the Ferrari alongside the Lamborghini. He's almost done so as they head up towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson. Can Dan Dazil go through into second place? Yes, he can, round the outside at Brundle, and gets the job done before they even get to the right-hander at Nelson. The Ferrari 488 is now up into second place, Tom Webb in third, but now coming under pressure from the next of the Ferraris, that in the hands of Lachy Christoforou. out of the bomb hole, up towards a sweeping right-hander at Coram. Graham Tilley not too far away at the wheel of that Nissan GTR as well, going well in his first ever race in what is a very unfamiliar car from him, as we heard earlier on. But the trio for third, fourth and fifth place, flicking their way out of Murray's, heading on to the Senna straight over the start-finish line, and lap number 1 gets chalked into the book. Richard Chamberlain will lead, Dan Dazil second, Tom Webb in the Lamborghini in third place, Lucky Cristoforo in fourth, but he's now under pressure from Graham Tilley, who thinks he might have an opportunity. Nothing doing as they went up towards Ritchie's. He'll have to wait until further around the lap. Big locked brakes for John Seal. He is heading off the circuit. This car damaged to the front of it as a result of an off in qualifying, so he didn't get many laps in. That's why he starts from the back of the grid. And here now is the battle for the lead, because Dan Dazil all of a sudden has caught up with Richard Chamberlain. Group GTO versus Group GTC. Can the Ferrari go through? No, Richard Chamberlain using all of his experience, many years experience in racing this fantastic Porsche, to hang on to the lead of the race. Under pressure though as they head down the Bentley straight. We've seen already what Dan Dazil can do, and it looks as though he's going to try it again round the outside of Richard Chamberlain at Brundle, gives him the inside line for Nelson, and Dan Dazil now goes through to take up the lead of the race, but runs a little bit wide coming out of the corner, and Richard Chamberlain runs side by side with him and retakes the lead of the race. Fantastic stuff. Literally, Dan Dazil only had the lead for a matter of feet, but now it's the Porsche of Richard Chamberlain that is back in the lead of the race, and these two are pushing each other hard and still breaking away from the cars behind as well. It's still the blue Lamborghini of Tom Webb that sits there in third place, but he is under enormous pressure, as is Richard Chamberlain for the lead of the race. Down at the bottom of the Bentley straight, Chris Murphy's Aston Martin coming under pressure from the Cayman in the hands of Brent Millage. Nice to see the Cayman joining the GT Cup ranks, and in the hands of Brent Millage is going very, very well indeed as it looks to try and get itself into contention in Group GTH. Here comes Tom Webb under pressure, no longer from Lucky Cristoforo's Ferrari, because he's dropped down into fifth position. It's now Graham Tilley's Nissan that's going beautifully well as the car makes its debut in GT Cup, hounding the Lamborghini ahead. Now, Graham Tilley runs in Group GTO, whereas the cars both in front and behind run in Group GTC, so it's not a fight for group position as such, but for Graham Tilley, it's a good first outing at the wheel of the Nissan. Through the left-hander at Palmer, Lamborghini from Nissan, from Ferrari for third, fourth and fifth position. Great fight as they head up towards Agostini and up towards Ritchie's. Here comes Chris Prosser at the wheel of the number 79 Team Hard Ginetta, leading Group GTA at this stage. Himself and Steve Chandler share the car. He could be on for group win number 7 of the season. Graham Tilley now ahead of Tom Webb coming out of Murray's, but all of a sudden the car slows. Tom Webb goes by, Lucky Cristoforo goes by. Now, did he miss a gear, or is there a problem with the Nissan? There go the race-leading pair still together over the start-finish line. Here comes Tom Webb in his newly reacquired third place, Lucky Cristoforo in fourth place, and Graham Tilley, yes, still looking slightly slow in fifth place. I do fear there may well be a problem with that Nissan. Here's the Group GTH leader. Now, this is also the overall championship leading car. Steve Rushton behind the wheel of the Signature RV First Choice Group McLaren 570 has actually built quite an advantage in Group GTH, so he's going well. And this is David Franklin at the wheel of his Porsche. He currently leads Group GTB. Great to see David now moving over from other types of sports car racing into the Porsche. Here's Tom Webb, still in third place, but he still cannot escape the grasp of the Ferrari 488 of Lucky Cristoforo that sits behind him, so still having to work terribly hard to hang on to that third position and what potentially is going to be second in Group GTC if he can keep it there. And I suspect he might, because time is running out for Lucky Cristoforo, because Richard Chamberlain is now onto his last lap of the race. He works his way past David Franklin's Porsche. He's going to squeeze the throttle and work his way past Brett Millage at the wheel of the Cayman and head up towards the checkered flag. It's win number 5 of the season in Group GTO for Richard Chamberlain. He comes through to grab the first race win of the weekend in the GT Cup Championship here at Snetterton in Norfolk. Dan Dazil will finish not that far behind him in second position, and the fight for third is surely going to go the way of the Lamborghini and Tom Webb. Confirmation then of the results. It's a win for Richard Chamberlain, with Dan Dazil in second place, securing top honours in Group GTC, Tom Webb in third and Lucky Cristoforo in fourth. Steve Ruston in fifth claims Group GTH, and Chris Prosser in sixth gets Group GTA. Chris Murphy, Sam Randon, Brett Millage and David Franklin is the Group GTB winner in 10th place, ahead of Sander Mortensen, Frank Mortensen, Fraser Smart, John Seal and Mal Sanford.
John, you're in a new car this year in GT Cup, aren't you? Tell us about it.
Yeah, the new 570 McLaren, picked it up new this year. A lot different to the Ginetta GT H car, but a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more prep work, a little bit heavier. So it's a different drive altogether, but we're having fun with it, and we've so far kept it on the track. So.
How are you finding conditions this weekend at Snetterton?
It's drying, so it's getting greasy, very unpredictable conditions, but it's the same for everybody.
It's a change from the last couple of seasons where I had a Ginetta GT4. Decided to make the change because of the BOP was starting to penalise the Ginetta in terms of speed. So yes, I've upgraded to the new 718 Cayman. Getting used to it. In the dry, I'm still off the pace, but I think that's more me than the car.
How are you finding the difference between the Ginetta and the Porsche Cayman?
It's very different. I mean, the Cayman is faster, it's heavier and shorter wheelbase, so first time out you try and drive it like a Ginetta and it doesn't work.
So let's have a look at the grid for the pit stop race then. It's Richard Chamberlain and Graham Desile on row number 1, with Tom Webb and Lackey Christoforou on row 2. Graham Tilley and Sander Mortensen on 3. John Whitehouse lines up with Chris Prosser on row number 4, and it's Chris Murphy and Frank Mortensen that sit there on row number 5. Josh Jackson and David Franklin on row 6. Brent Millage and Del Shelton on row number 7. James Simons and John Seal on row number 8. And Mal Sanford on his own on row number 9. Seamus Jennings, the team have had to go to Germany to pick up parts for his car. So the circuit is dry, but there's rain in the air, and a few cars have rolled the dice and started on wet tyres here. Richard Chamberlain is on slicks, he's on pole position. The lights go out. Graham Desile alongside another car that's on slick tyres, and Tom Webb looking to try and propel himself into the lead of the race here. A great start for the Lamborghini, another driver on slick tyres. The cars that started on wets, Lackey Christoforou starting from the pit lane because he came in after a spin on the outlap. Del Shelton in the BMW has opted for wet tyres, as has Chris Murphy in the Aston Martin. But other than that, everybody else is on slick tyres on what are already starting to become spits of rain that are getting ever heavier. And this is really going to spice things up. There is the BMW of Del Shelton, the white car with a blue tail end to it. He's on wet tyres, and already you can see that is making a difference. Tom Webb very gingerly round through Palmer. Graham Tilley takes a really wide sweep through the left-hander to try and seek out some grip somewhere in these deteriorating conditions. Now, for the moment, it is a bit too wet for slicks, but I'm not sure it's actually wet enough just as yet for wet tyres, so it's going to be a difficult decision for the drivers to make. It is a pit stop race. They will have to come into the pits at some point, but it's so early in the race, the pit window isn't open, and if you come in now, you're going to have to make a second stop. So, into the pit lane, it is Brett Millage dives for the pit lane. There's a spin for John Seal in the tricky conditions. He rotates the Lamborghini coming out of Wilson, and there is also the McLaren heading off the circuit. That is the championship leading car, just going to show how difficult the conditions are now. Graham Tilley is in, he's opting for wet tyres, and everybody is pouring into the pit lane to change from slicks onto wet, other than those 3 cars which made the right decision and started on the wets in the first place. And this could really play well into the hands of the number 27 Ferrari of Lackey Christoforou, who had a spin on the outlap on his slick tyres, opted to come in and change onto the wets immediately. Number 71, Del Shelton, now leads the race at the wheel of his BMW. He was another one of the drivers that had the foresight to opt for those wet tyres, and he leads the race as everybody else files their way out of the pit lane. And you can see now the enormous rooster tails of spray that are coming off the back of the cars. It is properly wet. There is no decision other than wet tyres now. There's number 27, Lackey Christoforou. That's the car that I said came into the pits on the formation lap to change onto wet tyres. Tom Webb now also looking to see what he can do after he came into the pit lane to change onto his wet tyres. And you can see that the conditions have changed totally since the beginning of the race. Graham Tilley under pressure from Lackey Christoforou, who's going to squeeze the Ferrari up the inside of the Nissan. Graham fights back though on the way out of the corner, but it will be Lackey Christoforou that grabs the place away and now starts to work that Ferrari well and truly up towards the sharp end of the order. He'll be closing in on Del Shelton's BMW before too much longer. In fact, there is Del. Here is the other Ferrari 488 we've got in the field. New car this weekend for Graham and Dan Dazil, the Ferrari 488. This is the car of Tom Webb now, starting to move up through the order. He was going quite well. Of all of the cars that started on slicks, in the damp conditions he was going well, but had to pit for those wets, and now he is slowly working his way back up through the order once more. And we'll see as to where he can end up in the end, because we know Tom Webb and the Team Webb Lamborghini this year have been going well. There's Richard Chamberlain, he's had an off, just going to show how tricky the conditions are. The Porsche having had a spin, he should be able to get some traction on the very wet grass now and rejoin the circuit, but all of the time has been lost and the damage has been done. Through goes Lucky Cristoforo now ahead of the Porsche. Now, Lackey, of course, hasn't had to do an extra pit stop because he started from the pit lane, having come in after the formation lap to change onto those wet tyres, and now that puts the number 27 Ferrari into the lead of the race. He will hand the car over during the pit stop window to ex-single-seater star and A1 GP champion Adam Carroll. So that car is in a strong position. Del Shelton also going beautifully well at the wheel of his BMW. The number 41 Lotus has had a few issues throughout the course of the weekend, but appears to be going fine at the moment. That's in the hands of James Simons for the first part of the race. Fraser Smart will take over for part two. And here's Tom Webb at the wheel of his Lamborghini, still trying to carve his way up through the order. The Lamborghini going well. Tom doing all of the driving today. It will be brother James that will do all of the driving tomorrow. And this is also now John Seal working his way back up into contention, fighting away with Richard Chamberlain, the Lamborghini. Both of those cars, remember, having had spins in what are unbelievably tricky conditions here at Snetterton. Onto the brakes, in towards the right-hand hairpin at Wilson. Again, you can see Richard Chamberlain not taking the usual racing line, just taking a slightly wider arc through the corner, trying to seek out the grip on the very wet tarmac as the spray is thrown into the face of John Seal's Lamborghini that sits behind, turns his way through the left-hander at Palmer, and if anything now is looking to put a bit more daylight between himself and that orange Lamborghini. Richard Chamberlain in Group GTO, as is the Lamborghini that John Seal drives, and that will be handed over to Jamie Stanley for part two of the race. Problems for Del Shelton at the end of the Bentley straight. The BMW now, I think that was a snatched break, which means that he's got to take to the grass and should be able to rejoin the circuit. But again, such speed you're carrying, and there is an off also, and that is one of the Top Cats Racing Marcus Mantis cars. That's the number 51 car of Frank Mortensen that's also off. We're now into the pit window, so the cars reappear back into the pits. John Seal, the first of those to come in and blink and hand the car over to Jamie Stanley. And here also is now number 19, which is Graham Dazil, giving way to son Dan Dazil. So everybody filing their way into the pit lane. Race leader is in, number 27, Lucky Cristoforo, about to hand the car over to Adam Carroll. Out of the pit lane comes number 10, which is Mal Sanford, driving on his own this weekend for Whitebridge Motorsport. But with the pit stop window open, all of the cars filing their way in, including the number 79 car, which is going to be handed over to Steve Chandler for part two of the race. Graham Tilley also exiting pit road. So it's a very, very busy part of the race now as all of the mandatory pit stops are taking place. Into the pit lane comes Tom Webb. That Lamborghini has been going well. It was leading the race before the conditions started to worsen. Now that he's on his wet tyres, he's worked his way back up through the order, so could be one to watch out for in part two of the race, Tom Webb. Jamie Stanley splashing his way out of Agostini on board the green Lamborghini that's just been vacated by John Seal. The JMH Automotive prepared car should go well in the hands of the former British GT racer, who's been a regular in GT Cup over the course of the last few years and is always one of the quick pro drivers for sure. Effortless to work his way past the Group GTH car of Brent Millage, such is the power that the Lamborghini puts out relative to the Cayman. But Brent Millage is still at this stage leading Group GTH and going very well at the wheel of that Porsche. Here comes erstwhile race leader Del Shelton. It's not surprising that he's lost the lead of the race because the more powerful cars are working their way through, including this one, the Lamborghini of Tom Webb, who has briefly picked up the lead of the race again during the course of the pit stop window. This is a battle in Group GTH that's going on. Brent Millage under huge pressure from the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin of Chris Murphy, but it's still just the Cayman ahead of the Aston Martin. And after all of the rain, the sky's now starting to look a little bit clearer. It's still going to remain wet for the rest of the race, but I think the heavy rain has largely now cleared, which means that the circuit conditions may well improve. Now that all of the pit stops are out of the way, it's put the number 27 Ferrari, the 488 that's now in the hands of Adam Carroll, the Irishman, back into the lead of the race. So the Ferrari is leading as it turns its way out of Oggy. Sideways is Del Shelton in the BMW, looking to try and counter the oversteer with a little bit of opposite lock there, but the BMW almost came unstuck as down the Bentley straight powers Adam Carroll. Now this is the car that leads Group GT at the moment. The number 79 Ginetta that was in the hands of Chris Prosser for the first part of the race is now in the hands of Steve Chandler. And it does look as though they could well be on for group win number 8 of the season, because we are now on to the last lap of the race. Richard Chamberlain working his way past Chris Murphy's Aston Martin. Richard Chamberlain after his spin further down through the order, but the win is going to go the way of the FF Corsa Ferrari of Lucky Cristoforu and Adam Carroll, who come through to claim their 5th group win of the 2019 GT Cup season, and a dominant win at that. 1 minute and 45 seconds up the road from the second place car of Tom Webb. Confirmation of the results then. Lucky Cristoforum and Adam Carroll claimed the win from Tom Webb in second place and Graham and Dan Dazil in third place. John Seal and Jamie Stanley in fourth claimed Group GTO, with Richard Chamberlain in fifth and Brett Millage in sixth place ahead of Graham Tilley, Del Shelton, Chris Murphy, Steve Ruston and John Whitehouse. In 11th place, Chris Prosser and Steve Chandler claimed their 8th group win in Group GTA of the 2019 season, with Mal Sanford completing the top 12. So happy scenes on the podium. An intriguing race that in the end went the way of the Ferrari.
GT Cup drivers are a dedicated bunch. Nothing's going to get in the way of them having a great weekend's racing, as I found out earlier. Seamus, you've had a bit of a weekend, haven't you, this weekend at Snetterton?
Yeah, that's an understatement. We raced last weekend at Spa and British GT, and unfortunately I got turned around at Le Camp and the car went into the wall backwards. So we had quite a bit of body damage that the team worked on all week, but we saw the GT Cup was on. We thought, yeah, it'd be good to come up this weekend up to Snetterton. The first little practice session, I got out, drove around the first corner, the second corner, slow speed, and then the throttle just completely went dead. We ended up finding that there's a little thing like that which broke. The throttle is fly-by-wire, so it sends a signal to a little electric motor, and a little tiny spleen, about 5 quid's worth, had snapped, sheared off. They managed to get on a ferry. They then drove from Calais down to Spa. Greg talked his way in, went down to the parts truck, got the little part, back into the car, drove back through Belgium, France. This is last night, all night, and he arrived here at 8:45, and of course the practice was at 9 o'clock. So we just managed to get it finished for the qualifying.
The cars are lining up on the grid here at a very soggy Snetterton for the sprint race. The number 55 Lamborghini Huracan on pole position after a fantastic qualifier. Next to it, the distinctive orange Porsche of Richard Chamberlain. The wets are on. It's slippery out there. Let's go racing.
Thanks, Michelle's, as the cars now head off onto their final formation lap around Snetterton. Let's have a look at how the full grid lines up. It's John Seal that starts on pole position with Richard Chamberlain alongside. That repaired Porsche of Seamus Jennings on row 2 with Lucky Cristoforu. The two Grahams, Dazil and Tilley on row number 3, with James Webb and Sam Randon on row number 4. Steve Chandler and John Whitehouse make up row number 5. Row 6 is Brent Millage and Sander Mortensen. Row 7 is Del Shelton and Lucky Kira. Row 8, David Franklin and Frank Mortensen. And then at the back of the field, it's Fraser Smart and Chris Murphy, with Mal Sanford on his own on row number 10. So the cars on their final formation lap coming up towards the start-finish line. It's a good start from Richard Chamberlain from the outside of the front row of the grid by the look of things, and he's going to propel the Porsche into the lead of the race, heading up towards Richie's. John Seal looking to try and hang on to second, sweeps over the nose of Seamus Jennings to hang on to the position, and the two Ferraris very close together there as well, Lucky Cristoforu and Graham Dazil. And even behind those two, it looks as though Graham Tilley and James Webb were squabbling over 7th and 8th places in the early stages. You could see the rain on the cameras and just how difficult the conditions are out there. So everybody treading very carefully in the early stages of this one as they work their way round through the hairpin at Wilson. Chris Murphy trying to work his way past the Marcos and the Lotus, but there's an errant Lamborghini facing the wrong way, and that is John Seal, who is slithering his way back off the grass onto the tarmac, and that has left John a huge amount of work to do now to try and get himself back up to the sharp end of the field. He'll pick up some of the lesser powered cars fairly easily, but the further he climbs up through the order, the more difficult it's going to become thereafter. Richard Chamberlain sprinting away in the lead of the race. Remember, he claimed the victory in the first sprint race of the weekend yesterday, and at the moment has opened up quite a gap between himself and Seamus Jennings in second place now, of course, as a result of John Seal having had that rotation. You can see the car sliding on the power as they try and apply the power as gingerly as they can. 21's going well. That's Sam Randon at the wheel of the Group GTH Ginetta. Of course, in these conditions, the lesser powered cars have less of a disadvantage than the more powerful machines, and Sam is really going beautifully well at the wheel of that Ginetta. Up towards Brundle and Nelson, they all work their way. Richard Chamberlain still leading the race. Seamus Jennings in second place. Then the first of the Ferraris, which is Lucky Cristoforu from the car of Graham Dazil that sits there in fourth place. Fifth at the moment is going to be that car there, which is Graham Tilley, who's there in fifth place, going well again at the wheel of the Nissan in his first weekend of racing that car. A very, very different car to the Ginetta that he's regularly campaigned for the last few years. Up towards the braking area for Murray's. Nissan closes onto the coattails of the 488 Ferrari of Graham Dazil, but in a straight line, the Ferrari starts to pull away again a little bit more over the Nissan. James Webb is a little bit further back at the wheel of his blue Lamborghini, but still inside the top 6 currently. First lap chalked into the book. Up towards the braking area for Richie's comes Graham Tilley at the wheel of that ex-RJN European GT3 specification Nissan. Can't at the moment unlock the door. Graham Dazil hanging on to 4th position. Through the hairpin again, that wider line being taken, the less polished surface. Here comes the other Lamborghini, the green one off John Seal, working his way past the Porsche of David Franklin, so that's another place gained at least for John Seal, but he really needs to push as hard as he can, and in these difficult conditions, if you do that, it's easy to make another mistake. James Webb looking to try and put Graham Tilley under pressure. Can the Lamborghini squeeze its way through? No, the door's just closed by Graham Tilley, so James Webb for the moment, frustratingly, still down in 6th position. Still early in the race though, so he's still got plenty of opportunity to see whether he can prise that door open and then put the Lamborghini through and ahead of the Nissan. But after that failed attempt, he's just dropped that little bit further back now and isn't going to really pick up the tow and the slipstream as they head onto the Bentley straight this time through. So it's still Nissan ahead of Lamborghini. Here's a replay, and that is Frank Mortensen by the look of things. Yeah, having a brief off at the wheel of the Top Cats Marcus Mantis. No harm done. He will continue in the race. And here's the sister car to it in the hands of his son, the number 3 car of Sander Mortensen. Currently leads Group GTB, actually, so he's going very well indeed. There's a Group GTH winner from earlier on this weekend, Brent Millage at the wheel of his Porsche Cayman. At the moment, though, it is going to be the number 21 Ginetta of Sam Randon that leads that group. The fight between Nissan and Lamborghini still raging. They're not that far behind the Ferrari either, so it could well be, if they don't slow each other up too much, if they work together, they could catch up with the car of Graham Dazil that lies ahead of them. But for the moment, I think James Webb is more intent on attacking the Nissan that lies ahead of him. Here's John Seal attacking David Franklin. Well, he had got himself ahead of the Porsche. David Franklin back ahead of the Lamborghini again now, but John Seal grabs the place back as over the start-finish line comes our race leader, Richard Chamberlain, under pressure from Seamus Jennings. Remember, this Porsche, it's the first time we've seen it all weekend. A £5 part is what stopped the car coming out onto circuit yesterday. The team drove from Snetterton all the way over to Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium to pick up the part, come back, only got the car fixed in time literally seconds before qualifying, and what a return Seamus Jennings is giving them on all of their hard work to get him out onto track, pressurising Richard Chamberlain for the win. Needs to be careful though, because the Ferrari of Lucky Cristoforu is not that far behind, and any attempt to try and grab the lead of the race, if it didn't work, may well mean that Seamus Jennings actually lost the position. So the leading trio turning their way round through the left-hander at Agostini. Group GTO cars in first and second place. In third place is the Group GTC leading car of Laki Christoforou, so he'll be conscious that even if he overtakes the cars ahead of him, it doesn't gain him any more championship points. He's got a championship he needs to think about. He'd like to finish as high up as he can, but a group win is what gives you the points. There is, off the circuit again, Frank Mortensen at the wheel of the Marcus Mantis. We saw him have a problem up there at Oggies earlier on, and now is this James Webb an opportunity to get through and ahead of Graham DeZiel? Yes, it is. He's already dealt with Graham Tilley, and now Lamborghini is attacking Ferrari. Is he going to go through? He's got the advantage. He's a bit later on the brakes. Up towards Oggies, he's on the outside line though, might try and cut back on the exit of it, and he's now going to try and squeeze the Lamborghini up the inside, heading round through Williams. Great defensive work by Graham DeZiel. He's having none of it though. The Ferrari still hangs on to the place. Over the start-finish line come our race-leading trio, ready to start the last lap of the race. Richard Chamberlain under pressure from Seamus Jennings, with Laki Christoforou having the best seat in the house. And here comes James Webb attacking Graham DeZiel again. The Ferrari on the right-hand side of the circuit. That gives Graham DeZiel the inside line when they get to the next corner, which is Ritchie's. And James Webb's going to have to go around the outside here if he wants to try and get the Lamborghini through and ahead. He's braving it out all the way around the outside, and it might work in the wet conditions, you know, and it has. It's the Lamborghini that moves up into fourth position now in the hands of James Webb, and Graham DeZiel down into fifth position. Almost outbraked himself though, there was James Webb. Almost ran out of room. Here is the Group GTH leading car, Sam Randon, heading on to his final lap of the race. It's been a solid race so far from Sam Randon, and the Group GTA leading car is the sister car for it from Team Hard. That is in the hands of Stephen Chandler for this race, and he's tucked up behind actually the Group GTB leading car, which is the number 3 Marcus Mantis, in the hands of Sander Mortensen. So those are two separate group leaders there, the Marcos and the Ginetta that sits behind as they head their way past one of the Whitebridge Motorsports Aston Martin. But for Richard Chamberlain, it looks as though he is on course for another win in a sprint race here at Snetterton. He claimed one yesterday, he's going to claim another one here today. Accelerates his way out of Murray's for the final time, up towards the start-finish line, and it is going to be a win for the CTR Development Porsche 935 clone of Richard Chamberlain. Comes through to grab the checkered flag. Seamus Jennings, what a result really for GCAT Racing and Seamus Jennings. After all of the hard work to even get the car on the grid, he comes through and finishes in second place. And winning Group GTC, finishing in third overall, is Laki Christoforou. There's still some racing going out on circuit though. This is for 11th and 12th place overall. The Group GTB leader, Sander Mortensen, at the wheel of the Marcos, under pressure from the Group GTA leader, which is Steve Chandler's Ginetta. Here's the McLaren of John Whitehouse. He's got a run on Brett Millage for second in Group GTH, heading towards the line. And is he going to sneak it? Yes, he does, by 47 thousandths of a second. The McLaren grabs second in Group GTH. Sander Mortensen comes through. He will be the Group GTB winner. The Ginetta behind him will be the Group GTA winner. Another fantastic race, and very, very tricky conditions for the drivers to master. The crowd enjoyed that as well. Let's confirm the result. Richard Chamberlain grabs the win from Seamus Jennings in second place, and Group GTC winner in third place, which is Laki Christoforou. James Webb and Graham DeZiel ahead of Graham Tilley in the top 6, with John Seal in 7th and Sam Randon in 8th, John Whitehouse 9th and Brent Millage in 10th place. Sander Mortensen and Steve Chandler finishing 11th and 12th place, with Lucky Kira, David Franklin, Chris Murphy, Frank Mortensen and Mel Sanford rounding out the rest of the finishers.
It's endurance time, 50 minutes of racing with a pit stop breather and a couple of driver changes. The number 55 Lamborghini is back on pole with John Seal behind the wheel. Let's go racing.
Thanks, Michelle, as the cars head off on their final formation lap. Let's have a look at the way the grid forms up. Pole position goes the way of the number 55 car of John Seal, and alongside it's going to be Laki Christoforou. Row 2 of the grid is Seamus Jennings and James Webb, and row 3 is going to be Graham DeZiel and Graham Tilley. The 4th row of the grid is number 21, Sam Randon and Brent Millage, with row 5 being the number 79 car of Steve Chandler, who lines up alongside Sander Mortensen. Row 6 is 44, that's Steve Ruston for part 1 of the race and Lucky Kira. Row 7 is Del Shelton and Frank Mortensen. Row 8 is Chris Murphy and David Franklin, and at the back of the grid is Mel Sanford. After changeable conditions here at Snetterton throughout the course of the weekend, it's finally dry. The cars are on slicks. John Seal and Laki Christoforou on the front row of the grid, heading up towards the red lights, which are on the gantry. The lights go out now. It's a good start from John Seal from pole position. Laki Christoforou just losing out, and might lose out to Seamus Jennings here. Side by side for the lead of the race, up towards Ritchie's. There's contact. Seamus Jennings is tipped into a spin. The Porsche spins backwards across the circuit, then back into the middle of the circuit, and everybody's having to brake either right or left in avoidance of the stricken Porsche, which thankfully has not been collected by anybody. Race continues. John Seal leads the race. Lucky Cristoforo in second place. Graham DeZiel in third place. It's James Webb in his Lamborghini that's there in fourth place. And as for Seamus Jennings, well, he has to finally get the car pointing in the right direction. Will continue round, but has got a huge amount of work to do now in this 50-minute pit stop race here at Snetterton that brings the curtain down on what's been a great weekend of racing for the GT Cup Championship. This is round 12 of the 2019 championship season, and John Seal is already looking to try and make good his escape at the wheel of the JMH Automotive Lamborghini. He leads the race as he heads out of Oggies for the first time. The Ferrari sitting there in second place is that of Lucky Cristoforo. Graham DeZiel in third place, James Webb in fourth, and then it's the Ginetta that's there in fifth position. That will be Sam Randon at the wheel of the number 21 Ginetta that sits there in fifth place. The number 3 Top Cats Racing Marcus Mantis of Sander Mortensen under pressure from Lucky Kira's BMW in the early stages of this one, but the front pack of cars is just heading down in towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson, and that includes that quick starting number 21 Ginetta in the hands of Sam Randon. He'll hand that car over to Josh Jackson for part 2 of the race. Graham Tilley coming under pressure from the sister team Hard Ginetta, which in the hands of Chris Prosser for the first part of the race. That's the number 79 car, and he's got Steve Ruston's McLaren not too far away. Up towards the braking area for Murray's for the first time they'll come. The leading pair already up the road, but in third position, Graham DeZiel coming under pressure from James Webb. The Lamborghini a little bit quicker coming out of the corner. Jinx to the left-hand side of the circuit. Is he going to be able to draw himself alongside the Ferrari? Can he get in front? Side by side up towards Ritchie's. Graham DeZiel protects the inside line, so James Webb is going to have to try and see whether he can unlock the door elsewhere to third position. Nothing doing now as they head in towards the braking area for Wilson this time. It's Lamborghini from Ferrari, Ferrari from Lamborghini, that being the top 4 in the early stages of this one. David Franklin trying to get up the inside of Chris Murphy's Aston Martin, can't quite squeeze his way through there, so still remains in the same place, with Frank Mortensen also not that far behind at the wheel of the Top Cats Racing Marcus Mantis. Some great fights going on all the way through the order in the early stages of this one, and the 2 Team Hard Ginettas working together as well. There's Lucky Kira, unfortunately unlucky for Lucky, he's out of the race at the wheel of the BMW and into retirement. Here comes Graham DeZiel through Brundle and Nelson. He's at the wheel of the Ferrari 488, new car for him this weekend. Sitting there still in what is third position, but under pressure from the Lamborghini Huracan in the hands of James Webb. That's not that far behind. They'll head round through Coram, on towards the brakes and up towards the left-hander at Murray's that concludes the lap. And here is Seamus Jennings at the wheel of the GCAT Racing Porsche, working his way back up through the order, having spun to the very tail end of the field. He's just going past Sam Randon's number 21 Ginetta. Is he going to make it through at the bomb hole? No, Sam turns across the nose of the Porsche. They are fighting for position, so he's entitled to do that. And now he might allow his teammate, Chris Proser, up the inside. There, out of the race is Sander Mortensen. He's put the Marcos into the barriers by the look of things and walks away from the stricken car. Out of Oggies comes the third place car, still in the hands of Graham DeZiel, still under this intense pressure from James Webb. They head onto the Bentley Straight, and James Webb this time has got a much better exit onto the Bentley Straight, and he's going to go through surely to grab the position away. The momentum all the way down the Bentley Straight. Is it going to see the Lamborghini go through ahead of the Ferrari? Graham DeZiel tries to fight back, but the job is done. Signed, sealed and delivered. It is James Webb now that puts the Lamborghini up ahead of the Ferrari, and the Ferrari will look to his mirrors and think, oh crumbs, Graham Tilley's not too far away either. Out of the bomb hole goes James Webb and his newly acquired position, turning his way round through Coram. And there's traffic just up the road as well that we'll need contending with before too much longer, and this could be the possibility where he might be able to break away from the car he's just taken the place away from. For the moment, he's already gapped by the look of things, that number 19 Ferrari, as they head over the start-finish line. Traffic being dealt with, stays neatly out of the way. Lucky Cristoforo has just put a lap on Frank Mortensen's Marcos. That's the sole remaining Marcos we've got in the field now, following his son Sander Mortensen disappearing off and into the barriers. Graham Tilley's also now dealt with the traffic as well, so the squabbles can resume. As for our race leader John Seal, well, he has also got traffic to deal with as well. Just up the road is number 71 Del Shelton. Here's the McLaren that leads the championship overall coming into this weekend. Steve Ruston on board for the first part of the race. And here's the Group GTA leading Ginetta of Chris Prosser at this stage of the race. He will hand the car over to Steve Chandler come the pit stop windows. Now, what's this? This is Lucky Cristoforu running wide by the look of things at the Wilson hairpin and allowing James Webb to steal the place away into the pit. Pit stop window opens. The number 21 car of Sam Randon comes in to hand the car over to Josh Jackson. And also Lucky Cristoforu enters the pit lane to hand over the number 27 Ferrari to Adam Carroll. This is going to be an important change for the team. They do, however, have 20 success seconds that they need to serve in this pit window. Out of the pit lane goes the number 55 Lamborghini. That's in the hands of Jamie Stanley now. Seamus Jennings also brings the GCAT Racing Porsche into the pit lane. Let's catch up with Lucky Cristoforu, who's just finished behind the wheel of his Ferrari.
The Webbs come through on the last lap. It wasn't worth dicing because I knew I was coming in on this lap, so he got through, but no, it's a good race.
The pit stops continue. The Group GTB Porsche 911 of David Franklin is in. He will remain behind the wheel of it, but the number 79 Ginetta is about to be vacated by Chris Prosser and handed over to Stephen Chandler for part 2 of the race. Back out of pit lane goes Seamus Jennings, followed by the other Porsche we have in the field, which is David Franklin. Graham Tilley now also heads into pit road to conduct his mandatory pit stop, and we can see now that Seamus Jennings back out on circuit will be hugely keen to try and make amends for the problems that befell him at turn number 1. The Porsche is now ahead of Dan de Ziel by the look of things. In the lead of the race is currently car number 13, which is James Webb. This is now the fight for second and third position, which is Seamus Jennings and Dan de Ziel at the wheel of the Ferrari. So the order just shuffling around whilst we're in the pit window, but either way, Seamus Jennings has done a stunning job to bring that Porsche all the way up through the order, following spinning down to very last position at the very first corner of the race, following the contact between himself and the car that leads the race. It's in the hands of Jamie Stanley now, but John Seal, of course, took the start of the race. Here is the number 19 Ferrari 488 of Dan de Ziel. He's taken the car over from his father, looking to try and see whether he can stay with Seamus Jennings at the wheel of that Porsche. They work their way onto the Bentley straight, but for the moment, Seamus Jennings is pulling away, and it's not surprising because his car runs in Group GTO. The Ferrari behind runs in Group GTC. In towards the braking area for Brundle and for Nelson. Still in second place is Seamus Jennings. Can he hang on to it, though, for the rest of the race? Because there are other cars that have pitted, that have had success seconds, that will now look to try and work their way back through the order. Seamus Jennings had 11 success seconds to serve in his pit window. That's Frank Mortensen. We've already seen an off for the sister car to it, a harmless spin for Frank. This is the car that now leads Group GTH, safely in the hands of John Whitehouse. We've seen Steve Ruston and John Whitehouse do great things so far this season. They've claimed group victories in all bar 2 races really this season. That's the Group GTA leading Ginetta, now in the hands of Steve Chandler. That's another car that's gone well so far this season. And here is David Franklin, who currently leads Group GTB. Last pit stop just taking place almost, leading the race by the best part of 45 seconds now is Jamie Stanley. The other Lamborghini of James Webb in the pit lane now is about to rejoin. And where is James Webb going to feed his way back out onto circuit? He'll have dropped back down through the order as a result of serving his 15 success seconds, and he's not quite going to get up to speed before Adam Carroll at the wheel of the Ferrari comes through. So that will mean that Adam Carroll goes through and ahead of the Lamborghini of James Webb. And if James Webb wants to try and grab the place back, he's going to have to work very, very, very hard, because Adam Carroll is a hugely experienced professional racing driver. For the lead of Group GTH is hotting up as well, because John Whitehouse and his McLaren have now been caught by Josh Jackson in the Ginetta that sits directly behind. The two of them almost pushing each other around Coram as they head up towards the conclusion of another lap. This is going to be the car that leads Group GTA at this stage. That is Steve Chandler at the wheel of the second of the 2 Ginettas that Team Hard have entered this weekend. And here's another good Group GTH battle as well. It's for 10th and 11th place overall. Chris Murphy in the Aston Martin under pressure from the Porsche Cayman in the hands of Brent Millage. For the moment, though, the Aston Martin just has the upper hand as they head out of Williams and along the Bentley straight. Doesn't matter where you look in Group GTH, there are good fights at the moment. John Whitehouse, this time maybe a bit more daylight between himself and the number 21 Ginetta of Josh Jackson. That's not to say that Josh has lost a great deal of daylight between the pair of them. And there is James Webb, the Lamborghini on the grass on the outside of the circuit. Here comes Seamus Jennings being chased by Dan de Ziel up towards the braking area for Ritchie's corner. but it's still going to be Seamus Jennings in second place, Dan Dazil in third position. Here's that fight again for third and fourth in Group GT8. Brett Millage unlocking the door. He's going to squeeze his way through and ahead of Chris Murphy with a great move as they went up towards Hamilton. Chris just left the door open and Brett had no second thoughts. Through he goes at the wheel of the Porsche Cayman and moves up to third now in Group GT8. Chris Murphy down to fourth in the group and down to 11th now overall in the race. Millage already looking to try and build the momentum. Now there's a 5-second stop-go penalty here for Seamus Jennings. The pit stop was deemed to be too short, and as a result of that, that Porsche that runs second on the road is going to have to head into the pit lane for a 5-second stop-go penalty. That's been served. He rejoins the circuit, and all of that hard work he's done means that he will rejoin now in fourth position. So Dan Dazil will have gone through, and also now Adam Carroll at the wheel of the other Ferrari will have gone through. On the last lap, it looks as though as they head up towards the checkered flag, it's going to be a win for Jamie Stanley, who brings the number 55 Lamborghini over the start-finish line to take the checkered flag for himself and John Seal and the JMH Automotive team. They will be hugely, hugely pleased with that. It's a win for John Seal and Jamie Stanley. Second are the Dazils, and third place goes the way of Lachy Christoforou and Adam Carroll. Seamus Jennings was fourth in the end, with Graham Tilley in fifth and James Webb in sixth place. The championship leaders, John Whitehouse and Steve Ruston in seventh. Sam Randon and Josh Jackson in eighth, ahead of Steve Chandler and Chris Prosser, with Brett Millage completing the top 10. Chris Murphy was 11th. David Franklin won Group GTB in 12th, ahead of Del Shelton and Frank Mortensen. They were the last of the finishers. It's Steve Rushton and John Whitehouse that lead the championship, still by 19 points from Lachy Christoforou and Adam Carroll in second place. John Seal and Jamie Stanley still lead Group GTO as they're there in third. Tom and James Webb are in fourth. And in fifth place, it's the Group GTA leading pair of Chris Prosser and Steve Chandler. Richard Chamberlain is sixth. Then it's the Dazils in seventh. And David Franklin leads Group GTB, but sits there in eighth place overall. Sam Randon and Josh Jackson are in ninth place. And Brent Millage completes the top 10 in the championship standings.
Well, that's it from Snetterton. We hope you've enjoyed this weekend's racing. Some great results for our drivers across the groups, in spite of the weather. Do join us next time, where we will be rolling into Silverstone. Hopefully, it'll bring some sunshine. We'll see you then.